In this video, we are going to be looking at adding, updating, and removing data from a new data set relative to an existing data set. And in this video, we are going to be looking at it using left joins only. Keep in mind the SQL syntax may vary by language. Now, there are other ways to accomplish this. We can use other join types. We can use merges. We can even use our application layer to run this logic. But for this example, we're going to only be using left joins. Another thing to keep in mind is order matters. In the demo, I'm going to be covering this. We want to think about performance, and I'll highlight this in a second, but if we add new records, then this will inherently affect our update on a join condition where records exist, right? So if we're going to update existing records and we haven't added new records yet, that's going to be better than if we add the new records, but now that's going to affect our join. I'll show that example. So the order we're going to use is delete, update, and insert. I do want to highlight that delete that I'm kind of circling right now. A lot of times with data differentials, with left joins or merges or whatever, we don't actually need a delete, right? Deleting is, in this scenario, in this example, business example, I should say, and this is a legitimate business example here, is if we have, let's say, homes for sale, and let's say it's a monthly report. And so in a new month, we have an existing data set, that's the homes for sale in an area. A new data set comes in, these are the homes that are for sale the next month. Sometimes those are the same homes. Sometimes those homes have changed. There might be like a bathroom or bedroom added or removed. And then sometimes there are homes that are no longer for sale. So that would be an example where the homes that are no longer for sale, we would remove from the existing data, right? Because they're no longer being sold, we would remove. But a lot of times when we're running differentials, we're simply just looking at the update and the insert part. So let's look at the two example data sets that we'll have here. And you'll see in the comments I've written out the requirement. So we see requirements, we see that in our existing data, we have home IDs 1 through 4. We see in our new data set, we have home IDs 2 through 6. So home 1 was sold from our existing data to the new data set this month. This new data this month no longer has home ID 1, so that's going to be removed, as we can see. So we're going to be deleting that value. When we look at, and let's pick on, I think it's home ID 2. So if we pick on home ID 2, we'll notice that it actually had an upgrade to 4 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, whereas home ID 2 here has 3 and 3. So that one has changed. Home ID 3 is the same, and then home ID 4 had a downgrade as far as bathrooms. So home ID 2 and 4 changed, and then we see that 5 and 6 are new homes that are for sale. They didn't exist in our existing data. Okay, so let me cover why we want to run the update before we run the add. Well, so if we're going to insert new records here, like we see this join condition that we're going to be using when we run this example. If we have this join example here, or this join here on this update, what's going to happen is if we had added new values, it will then hit those new values because there is a match. In fact, as I'm speaking here, there is one thing I'm going to have to add to this where clause. And that is because we're looking where the home ID in, T2 is not null, right? We're making sure that there's a match. There's no match because home ID, 1 is not going to match when we think about it with the new values. There are no new values here. So in fact, if I just pull this, let me just go ahead and do this and run this query up here, we'll see what I mean. There's no way that it's going to find those new values when I run this query. So it's only going to find the values that match if I say where T1.homeID, T2.homeID is not null. It's going to find the values that match. That's what I'm looking at right there, right? So the fun of live coding here. So actually I need to add this condition here to that update statement. But basically what it's going to do is it's going to update the records that exist. But if I added the new data, let's suppose I added the new values, then it would hit that on all of the values, right? So from a performance perspective, I want to first update, then add. That's the order that we're going to be doing here. So on this, I'm going to be this, and then I'm going to put this in quotes, parentheses, I mean, not quotes. Okay, and I'm going to add this, and I'm going to and T doesn't or that. Okay, cool. So what we'll do now is we're going to look at our data, and we're going to do this step by step. So we have our values, and we're going to actually delete. So we should see that the home ID 1 in our existing data is removed. And so when we select from our existing data, we'll see that that value is gone. So we're now left with 3 values. That is correct. Now, if we ran our insert, and we'll see the insert down here, we would add 2 more values, but then that means we would be updating 5 values instead of just updating these 3 values. We want to update as few values as possible when we do this here. This is one way to go about doing this, as we'll see. There are definitely other ways to do this that are more performant, but keep in mind that T-SQL is a set-based language. And by the way, this is correct. There's only 2 rows. As we remember, one of the rows was not, did not change from the new data to the existing data. So if we look at this now and we'll look at, what is it, home ID 2, we should see that it has 4 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. We see that, and if we look at home ID 4, we should see that it has 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. If we look at home ID 4, it does. So we've updated our data. And now we can run our insert statement, and we will run this insert statement. It's going to add those 2 new records. And because we ran that at the end, we don't have to worry about a poor performing update. That would also be looking at it as well. We'd rather not do that. And then we look at this now, and we see that there are the home ID 5 and the home ID 6. So what we've done here is we've used left joins to solve this problem. Now, again, there are many other ways to solve this problem. In fact, we could use left anti-joins if it was the right SQL language. And we could also use merges, and we could also use the application layer, and we could also use inner joins. We could use common table expressions, etc. So there are other ways to solve this problem. But just like what we've been learning with the SQL basics, you can use left joins to do these CRUD operations that solve this issue if you get it. Most of the time, I should say most, I'd say about 50-50, you won't have to remove data. But those times that you do remove data, you now see how you would go about doing that. I would say almost all of the cases, you're always going to have to update existing values and add new values. And then there's those times where you're going to have to delete data. This is actually a real world use case. This is actually a business problem that I've had before, and it did involve home sales and new home sales. And then, of course, homes that would change from month to month or quarter to quarter. And then, of course, homes that would fall out that you had to remove.